All right. The AllStar MMA Live is back. 2023, first show. And yeah, man, there was a pretty interesting couple of weeks before there was the first UFC event of the year. Lots to talk about. But before we get into, all the news and notes and things like that that's going on in the world of MMA or the world of UFC, we're going to break down UFC Vegas 67, headlined by Sean Strickland and Nasruddin Imavov. Man, I'm terrible with names. I'm just guessing on these on these names, but yeah. So today, joining me, we got Liam Picks Fights. So if you look at the handle, you know what he does. He picks fights and MMA ecosystem again on the show. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and let's jump right into it, man. Sean Strickland steps in on short notice against Nasruddin Imavov and gets the 5-round decision win. I thought he cruised through this fight. He looked really good. I'm thinking that the extra weight helped him. You know what I mean? Not cutting that extra weight when Imavov he stepped on a scale. What was he, like 195? Was he 195? Mm-hmm. He was 195, right? And Sean Strickland was like 204 or something like that. So Imavov must have been cutting weight, like when he found out that the opponent got switched. It was pretty short notice. But do you think that had a impact on this fight, Liam? Do you feel like the weight cut, or just maybe the short notice, or was it because it's 5 rounds? I don't know. Like, what do you think happened with Imavov? Because I thought Imavov had a good chance of winning. I picked him to win this fight, but he looked terrible.
Yeah, I picked him to win this fight, and I also bet him by knockout in this fight at plus 400. The reason being, I think I overthought how much impact the 5 rounds with Jared Cannonier was going to have on Sean Strickland in this fight. And maybe we did as a general public, in some sense of the word, that just looked like Sean Strickland. And he actually fought with a little bit more game plan, a little bit more of a sense of direction to what he was doing. Oftentimes, you see Sean Strickland pretty formless out there. People criticized him for not going for takedowns against Alex Pereira. People criticized him for not going for it more against Jared Cannonier in a fight that ended up being very close and decided within, a small number of strikes. So in this fight, I kind of prescribed before the fact that Sean Strickland was going to have to mix in some takedown attempts. He was going to have to lean on this guy against the fence, and he was going to have to try and just out-volume him and drown him in the later rounds when Imavov has tended to tire out, in some of his other fights in the UFC. And I was impressed that Sean Strickland came out so hot and he looked good in the early rounds. I thought the early rounds were pretty competitive. They were both landing hard shots, but just gradually over time, Sean Strickland's volume edge and his ability to keep moving was really impressive. And he stuck the kicks to the body in the rounds after round 1. He kind of got that attack back. He got that lane back. And I thought that was the real decision maker in the fight. When you keep getting touched to the breadbasket and you already don't have the best cardio in the world, it's going to be an uphill battle. And I think it was a good learning experience for Imavov to get in 5 rounds, to get through a difficult scenario where he felt a lot of adversity and where he was on the wrong end of a lot of significant strikes. And at the end of the day, this was also a fight outside of his home country. Last time he got a little bit of home field advantage. So I think this was a little bit of regression to the mean for Imavov. I don't think he's dead as a prospect because of this, but I think Sean Strickland, showed that if he fights with a game plan and he has, an intention to win, he could do much better in these fights. So I think Sean Strickland, if he put up 200 strikes in every fight, that's a hard guy to beat.
Yeah, with the style that Sean Strickland brings, right? He's pressing forward. He's not afraid to get hit. I felt like, man, it's open season for Nasruddin to go in there and have that, breakout performance. It never happened. It seemed like Nasruddin just couldn't hit that second gear at all. And like Liam, like you said, man, Sean was mixing it up. Not, it wasn't like the best mix up of skills, but he was keeping him guessing, right? And what do you think, Chris, with Imavov? What do you think happened in this fight for him? Like, do you feel like he just got flustered? The pressure got to him?
Yeah. I don't know if it was being flustered or the pressure, but I do think that just he was fighting a bigger opponent who has a very high volume, pressure forward style. And I think that I think those extra 10 pounds really made a difference. He was trying to carry that weight. He was preparing for Kelvin Gastelum. He was preparing for a guy that was going to have to cut to 185 pounds the same day that he was. And then, I forget how many days it was, 5 or 6 days beforehand, that he had the opponent switch out. He probably just, stopped cutting weight and went up to 194 pounds by the day of weigh-ins. But Sean Strickland he's a tornado. He's a lot to fight, and it's hard to prepare for him on short notice. Strickland, he has his style. He's not the kind of guy that you don't know if he's going to come out and shoot for a takedown in round one, or if he's going to be really pressure forward or hang back. He's got a style. He's going to stick to that style, and he spars a lot. He perfects that style, and that's what he's going to do. And I think that just like you were saying, Imavov, he started okay. The first rounds were closer, but just fighting that style over 5 rounds, having to carry Sean Strickland's weight, that's a lot to ask. And you saw, Imavov, his output, decreased as the fight went on. He got tired, and that's no knock on his cardio. It's just fighting a bigger Sean Strickland on a few days' notice is a lot to ask. And even, very well-conditioned elite athletes, that's a really big ask. And, Strickland, he trains in Vegas. He's just driving down the street. He's not really cutting any weight or much weight at all. And it was a tall ask from Imavov to try and meet that challenge head on. And I don't think of him any less as a prospect, as you were saying, Liam, but it really, his progression up the ladder was going to be much slower. He was going to fight a Kelvin Gastelum, who was ranked number 12 or 13, and on this losing streak. He was making his way slowly up the rankings, and instead he kind of got vaulted up to have to fight a light heavyweight Sean Strickland, who's 5 or 6 in the rankings. And I think it was just a little bit too much too soon. It was more than he was preparing for, and he did his very best. He fought as good a fight as he could, I think, given the preparation and the cards that were given to him, but it was just a little bit too much on short notice.
Liam, if Imavov fought Gastelum, who are you picking ahead of that fight? Because this was a very short notice fight for Sean Strickland. Who are you picking to win that fight?
This is the thing that kills me after the fact as an analyst, is that I was picking Kelvin Gastelum. Actually, I was thinking that Kelvin was live to win the fight. I thought he was going to come out and try and wrestle. I thought he was going to try to make it a dirty fight against the fence and just wear him down over time. And I've seen Kelvin Gastelum fight 5 hard rounds. He's very hard to kill. He's been dropped in a number of fights. He pops right back up to his feet. So I felt like there was some things to like about Kelvin Gastelum, and Sean Strickland on short notice. I was thinking to myself, maybe he won't look the same. Maybe he'll be wearing some of the effects of that fight that was just, 28 days ago. And he just looked great. So, we noticed as well, the best performance career to date. I actually tweeted before the fight, what was the best performance you've ever seen from Sean Strickland? And everybody's tweeting at me, Brendan Allen, hands down. That was 195-pound catch weight. He threw 96 strikes in 7.5 minutes and absolutely bludgeoned that guy. So it's not to say that Sean Strickland, maybe he's one of these guys that's a little bit of a tweener. He used to force his body all the way down to 170 pounds. And people forget that he came into the UFC at 185. He got into a fight with 2 of the biggest guys at 185. They're 6'3", Luke Barnett. And he's like, I don't need any of this smoke anymore. I'm going to go down to 170. Nowadays, I feel like it's probably harder for him to get to 185, and it's impossible for him to get to 170 based on what we saw, that he's, weighing in 10 pounds heavier than a middleweight in Nasruddin Imavov, who looked to be, similar size on fight night. So it was crazy, man. I think Sean Strickland, he's a really talented guy that never fights to his potential. I felt like that was a version of him fighting to his potential, which is rare for him in the UFC. So more power to him.
Mm-hmm.
with Strickland, you know, I mean, he was on a 2-fight losing streak heading into this fight. You know, he was knocked out by Pereira, and then, you know, he lost that split decision to Cannonier. He puts himself back in the winning column, which is great for him. And he got paid a lot of money, like he said in the post-fight interview, which is always great. What's next for him, though, Chris? Like, who would you like to see him fight? Because right now, if you look at the rankings, right, with, you know, the rankings, Sean Strickland, he's sitting at number 7. He just beat Nasruddin, who's number 12. Do you see him fighting ahead? Like, you got Paulo Costa at 6. Brunson's fighting, so he's already matched up. You got Vettori, I think he's matched up as well. Cannonier, he just fought him and lost. You got Whitaker, you got Adesanya. It doesn't look like he's gonna fight anybody ahead of him. Who would you like to see Strickland fight next? Because I feel like he could probably step in another month or so if he really wanted to.
Yeah, he could, and you know he would. Paulo Costa is like, I don't know what he's gonna do next. It sounds like he's really unhappy with the UFC and he wants to get out. But just like that would be my fantasy matchup for Sean Strickland. I know that the lead up to that fight would be a lot of fun. That'd be a really like another perfect like UFC Apex main event, Costa versus Strickland. And so I think that would be a lot of fun. And I would, it's a fresh matchup for Strickland. He's fought a lot of guys at middleweight, but that would be my pick to see him fight Paulo Costa.
Liam, I'm going to put a scenario to you. The UFC, for some reason, they like to do this, is when you lose to a guy, they like to, for some reason, match you up with another guy from the same team. And if you look at the rankings, Chris Curtis is sitting at number 14. Could Nasruddin be matched up with Chris Curtis next? You know what I mean? Like, would you like to see Nasruddin? Who would you like to see Nasruddin fight next? Do you want to see the Kelvin Gastelum fight? Rebook that.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I think it would be fine for them to rebook the Kelvin Gastelum fight. But honestly, after that kind of fight, after 5 rounds of kind of just getting walked around and beat up a little bit, he might want a confidence builder. He might want to, take a little bit of a step back. It'll be interesting to see what Nasruddin does next. I'd actually want to pull up the rankings to answer what you were asking about Sean Strickland. I'd love to see him fight Adesanya in his next bout. Adesanya, I'm not sure that he's going to get the immediate title shot against Pereira. There's been talk about Khamzat Chimaev stepping in for that shot. So if that was to be the case, then I would like to see Adesanya get matched up with Strickland. I feel like in terms of pre-fight banter, that would also be great. And I think that, Izzy offers a lot of unique challenges on the feet, but I always thought that Sean would be fun to see him fight because Sean's going to try and walk him down and throw a jab in his face all night. I want to see if that works, because a lot of guys are afraid of Izzy when they fight him. So they don't want to walk him down. They want to make it a one exchange kind of fight. And that's not Sean Strickland, for better or worse. So whether he gets highlight reeled or, he does something crazy, I think that would be a really fun fight.
Whatever you think about his personality, take that aside. Sean Strickland is he's a unique individual, even inside the cage. The style that he fights in, like you said, he'll walk anybody down. He walked down Pereira. He just like, I'm not even gonna attempt any takedowns. I'm just gonna go against this guy with hammers and see if I could knock him out, and ended up getting knocked out in the process. And Adesanya would be a fun fight because Strickland's gonna go at Adesanya with all kinds of wackiness, and Adesanya will play that game as well. I think it will be fun. That could be a co-main event, right? For if they do put Khamzat versus Pereira. Oh man, it's weird, man. Like how the UFC works, right? A lot of people accuse them of like doctoring things and like playing narratives and all this stuff and favorites, but why would they put Adesanya against Pereira, have Pereira knock out Adesanya, become the champ, and then have Khamzat come in and fight Pereira, right? It's like the worst stylistic matchup for Pereira, but I don't know. But I think I could see the UFC doing that, though. I could see the UFC doing that. Just like, who cares? Let's just put this guy up here against a hardcore wrestler. But the thing is, Khamzat might sit there and stand with him. That's the crazy part. He's unpredictable. Now, co-main event, man. Dan Ige versus Damon Jackson, right? Damon Jackson, he he called out Dan Ige. He actually called him, called him and said like, "Yo, let's fight. Let's put this fight together." So, and he got his wish. And you got to call your shot, and sometimes it works out for you and sometimes it doesn't. Let me play this highlight of the finish and get your guys' reaction to it. Let's see what we got here. All right, here we go. Boom. Let's see Danny Gay. There you go. Liam, let's start with you, man. What about that combination, the finishing sequence? What do you think about that?
Oh, it's beautiful work. I mean, this is actually this is one of the fight predictions that I got right. I thought that Dan Ige was going to win this fight. I did think he was going to win it by knockout. He's got really murderous punching power. The Korean Zombie talked about this is the hardest puncher he's ever fought. And that left hook is this money punch. He's knocked people out with one shot before. He's not he doesn't have a career full of these highlights, but everybody that's ever fought him says like the last person you want to get punched by is Dan Ige. And Gavin Tucker found that out the hard way. And I just thought that Damon Jackson would have a very tough time wrestling him here, which a lot of people were expecting that. And so if he wasn't going to get the wrestling and the grappling going all night, he was going to be forced to stand with a guy who's got really murderous power punching. He's got a huge torso as well. So the body shots opened up that big hook later in the fight. His hands came down. He went to throw an uppercut and he got caught bad. And that was all she wrote. Dan Ige, 50K once again.
Damon Jackson, man, I expected more of the grappling. I expected him to do better in the grappling department. If you told me before the fight that Damon Jackson was going to go in there and stand with Dan Ige, I would have been like, man, that's not a good, of course you're going to have to stand with the guy because it's mixed martial arts, but just stand there and try to throw hammers. And I thought this was probably the fight of the night because of David Jackson's game plan of going in there and trying to strike with Dan Ige, and they were hitting each other, pretty heavy. Chris, Damon Jackson, what did you think of his game plan of how he fought Dan Ige?
Yeah, I thought he was fighting a little bit of he fought fire with fire a little bit too much. And, Damon Jackson, he's been around for a long time. He has a really good record. He's like, for this fight, he was like 22-4, 22-5, something like that. And I got to feel like he really trusts his striking a lot, but I wish that he would have made it a little bit dirtier and been a little bit grittier with Dan Ige, tried to clinch with him a little bit more and drag it down to the ground. Admirable, and I guess a sense to, have confidence in himself to be able to just like rush forward like that against Dan Ige. But, Ige is I think people underestimate him a lot because he's like a pretty like mild-mannered, like seems like a really good guy, at least in a lot of ways. And so I feel like he underestimated Ige's striking and definitely overlooked his power a lot. And I think he should have just stuck to his guns. And he was definitely far too aggressive and with his striking. And but then again, like Dan Ige, he's a BJJ black belt too, and so I think overall it was a tough matchup for Damon Jackson.
If you look at the numbers, they're pretty similar, right? Ige landed 40 strikes and Jackson landed 38 significant strikes. Now let's get into the significant strikes thing, Liam. Do you feel like Damon Jackson landed the more significant strikes throughout that fight? Because it says he landed 36 to Dan Ige's 34.
It's possible, but I didn't feel like, this is why I think sometimes the stats are very useful. They're important, but they don't really speak to the quality of the strikes. And the quality of the strikes, the impact of the strikes is really what matters at the end of the day. Because if I hit you one time and it breaks your face and you hit me 10 times and I don't have a mark on me, I think I won, just overall in the fighting sense, you're going to now have to go home and get surgery and I'm just fine. So it's like, we can all evaluate when there's real damage created by strikes versus when they're more cosmetic than anything. They're just feeler shots. And I felt like a lot of what he landed was partial lands, landing on the forearms of Dan Ige. Even a couple of those head kicks and things that he tried to throw up were kind of just mostly going off the gloves. And The other thing about Dan Ige historically, the guy hasn't been knocked out. He hasn't been submitted. He's very hard to kill. He's just an extremely tough guy, and he's also really savvy. You see in past fights, he's been hurt by Edson Barbosa to the body. And what does he do? He like grabs a hold of the guy and pulls himself into bottom side control. The guy just has natural instincts for survival. And so that's also what I liked about this fight, because Damon Jackson normally needs to finish you to win. And so coming in there against a guy who's extremely hard to kill, got 5-round cardio, that was always going to be a little bit of an issue for me. So I felt like this was a really, breakout performance for Dan Ige in some ways, but it's a lot of his classic skills. He's athletic. He's got good, counter wrestling. It's just not enough to beat the very best guys yet. He almost beat Josh Emmett, a guy who's about to fight for the interim title. So it's not like he's not right there with these guys. He's just got to make a couple small adjustments. He's at Extreme Couture. Eric Nixick got Coach of the Year last year. He coached Sean Strickland to a main event win, Dan Ige to a co-main event win in this case. So, this is a guy who I expect will be back on that main event circuit in no time in this featherweight division, especially if he gets another highlight reel win like this.
Yeah, you never know with these fighters, man. For example, Charles Oliveira. Let's just talk Brendan Moreno. You know what I mean? Guys that have been around for a long time and then eventually become champions, right? Become another level of themselves, right? And Dan Ige could be on his way to doing that. But then if he doesn't, then what does he become? He becomes this label. He becomes labeled as a gatekeeper, right? He can beat the guys that are coming up. It's just like the guys that are at the top. He just can't get over the hump. And we'll see. I think this year is going to tell you a lot about Dan Ige and his ability moving on in the future. He's worked. So there's a lot of like popping and when I speak. Do you hear that, Liam? Do you hear it as well?
I do. I'm not sure why.
Yeah,
I thought it was my headphones at first. That's why I did not say anything.
All right, let me tweak this a little bit. How about now? Is there still popping going on?
Beautiful. Whatever you did sounds much better.
Oh, all right, perfect. All right, man. We don't want all that popping and locking and shit going on. All right, and so Damon Jackson, when I look at the performance he had, it was good. I liked it. It wasn't terrible, right? But I think he fell in love with the knockout and he fell in love with the highlight, because the last fight he went into there and he told me ahead of the fight, like he didn't expect that type of performance against Pat Sabatini, right? And Pat Sabatini was one of those like big prospects, so to say, coming up, and Damon Jackson took him out in the first round by knockout. I think he was carrying that momentum, that confidence, that bravado into this fight against Dan Ige, who is a power puncher, and got sparked, right? So Dan Ige, I don't know what to do with him next, but what do you do with Damon Jackson, Chris? What do you do with that guy? You're muted.
Sorry, I would give him someone just outside of the top 15. Let me see who all is up there. Someone like I don't know, like a Charles Jourdain would be kind of fun. I guess give him one of these guys that's kind of like coming up, like a Hakeem Dawodu would be another good one. Someone that's on their way up to the top 15, or even you could even do like an Edson Barbosa. He's been out for a while, but that'd be kind of fun. Two guys that it's kind of like, what's their future? They're a little bit older. Which one of these guys is able to stay in the rankings? Which one needs to leave to make room for someone newer? So, Edson Barbosa, that'd be cool. We know that like Damon Jackson, he's not some like young prospect trying to put the pieces together. He's a veteran. He's got almost 30 fights, and I think it's worthy to respect that. He's been missing that respect for a long time. And so I was really, really grateful to see that Dan Ige matchup made. And so I think, give him someone that is kind of in a similar spot, a lot of fights, a little bit older. But we're a little bit.
I think I got the perfect one, boys. Juicy J, Julian Erosa.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Coming off the loss to Caceres, he just got knocked out. So maybe we do this in 4 or 5 months. We give him some time, get him some rest, and then he gets back in the octagon. That would be a great matchup. Both guys right outside the top 15.
that's a very equal matchup in my eyes, and I love it.
And I think within a year of age as well, like 33, 34 apiece.
Yep.
Is Billy Q? Is he featherweight?
Yeah, he is.
Lightweight.
Yeah, that'd be another good one.
Yeah, Billy Q would be an interesting fight for like Ige Jackson or even Danny. Right? Danny is ranked 13th, right? So Billy Q is on this like pretty decent. I like Danny versus Billy Q. Let's get that together. Let's get Billy Q on that, right? Billy Q's a guy that I really enjoy watching fight. Because he's like I don't know how you describe Billy Q. Right, like he will lose a first round and come and beat your ass second round, right? Like you look like dead in the water and come back, right? Like that's what Billy Q does. That's his like thing. And then once he, I think we haven't seen the best of Billy Q, but once it all together, he just needs to get rid of like getting punched and getting like brutally beat up in the first round. Once he gets rid of that, he'll be a top fighter. So Danny would be a pretty good test. Damn, it's going now.
Yeah, I mean, piecing together what you were saying though, like Billy, like there's hardly any like Billy Q fight that doesn't look good, and you could pretty much throw any name out there, and I'd want to see it with Billy Q. So, yeah, let's do that.
Oh, did you hear that? Is it still echoing for you guys?
Yes, sir.
Damn, StreamYard, man. Sometimes it just fucks up. I'm just gonna put that out there. So does it sound weird when you guys hear me?
Yeah, man.
It like almost sounds like it's like dragging the audio, and I don't know why.
All right, let me try this.
How about that?
Yep, that sounds better.
All right. This is not good. I guess I'll just take this out and just these headphones.
Hey man, happens to the best of us.
100%.
Yeah, I don't understand why that's happening. But anyways, let's move on to the next fight. The next fight we got here, a middleweight fight between Puna Soriano and Kopylov, right? Man, I thought this was gonna be the fight of the night, right? Because I felt like both these guys, young, power punchers, move pretty decent for the weight class, and at any moment someone's gonna get knocked out, and that's what I felt like through the whole fight, like any moment. And man, Kopylov, he impressed me a lot in this fight, right? Because I picked Puna to win the fight. I feel like Puna just has that like death touch in his punches, but Kopylov took those shots, man, and marched forward and just looked a lot more crisper on their feet and looked beautiful, man. I felt like he proved so much in this fight. Chris, what'd you think of Kopylov's performance?
Yeah, absolutely. He was one of the guys I was most impressed with from the whole entire card. It's like when Kopylov signed with the UFC, he had a little bit of hype with him. I believe he came from the F&G promotion in Russia, and he just like never performed up to what we thought he could do. And this was finally the fight that I feel like now I'm excited to see this guy fight going forward. He looked huge too. He looks bigger in every fight, but this fight, he just looked gigantic. And I think that might have been one of the missing ingredients in his, his overall appearances. Like his, is he able to hang with middleweights? Guys, he always looked a little bit undersized, but now he looks huge. He was able to, face down with another young middleweight prospect, like you said, that's got that death touch. And he showed, like, I think Soriano was not expecting him to be so aggressive and to hit so hard, which is what he did. He just looked dynamic coming out there, and it really wasn't. Soriano wasn't totally washed out, but like it was pretty one-sided in the way of Kopylov, and he's starting to look more and more like a real middleweight contender, and excited to see what he can do going forward.
He had his hands down against Puna. Like, I loved it. I love look at him. Look at his stance, dude. Like he he was at distance with his hands down against Puna. Liam, this guy is impressive, right? This guy just like he's one to watch this year. A young prospect in the middleweight division.
Yeah, this is a fight that I got dead wrong. And, you know, when I looked at the fight on paper, I just thought to myself, I was like, a guy like Puna with his wrestling background, again, versus what we've seen from Kopylov in the past in his wrestling and his grappling, I just thought that was going to be very exploitable. Puna never even sniffed a takedown. I think he attempted one or two, but he didn't even get close to the hips. And Kopylov just looked much improved in his wrestling defense. It's clear that he's been working on it. And on top of that, I think the note about physical development is huge. I thought he got bullied by Carl Roberson and beat up as well. You know, he's getting hurt on the feet in a lot of those exchanges. I feel like his cardio, which was always what he tried to rely on, has even gotten better because he didn't even seem to be breathing in this fight. You know, he took his time. He landed a lot of big shots, and he did a lot of work to the body, opened up a lot of shots upstairs. I thought that he probably hurt Puna to the ribs early on with a huge knee. And then, you know, subsequently, Puna became very flat-footed, very predictable. And I honestly thought that it was a clear underperformance from him. In addition to everything else, I thought Kopylov did look great and looked like the clear better fighter in hindsight. But in addition, I thought Puna underperformed here. He looked gassed after about a minute and a half, 2 minutes of this fight. You know, he was huffing and puffing for air, and part of that was the body work, but part of that, you know, is mismanagement of energy. He's just throwing with 100% every time. You're destined to gas out doing that. So whether it's at the 2 minute mark or the 5 or the 7 minute mark, you're not going to be able to fight 15 minutes if you do that. And I think he was slowing down and starting to get beat up because he was very plotting. So it became target practice for Kopylov, who isn't known for being the biggest one-shot hitter. You know, that's not actually his career selling point. It's that he comes on strong in the late rounds in round 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 if it goes there. But, you know, in this kind of case, it just seemed like, you know, Soriano was there to fight for about 3.5 minutes, and he couldn't really fight past that, where Kopylov was much better prepared. So credit to the preparation. Kopylov just looked like a much more professional fighter, frankly.
He just looked like a better Chase Hooper, right? It's like a manly version of Chase
I was
Hooper.
saying that him and Chase Hooper need to merge together. We need to get Chase Hooper's grappling and Kopylov's striking and anti-wrestling. Money.
Just make one of those like Power Rangers, you know, where they just like joined their bodies to make the, you know, some kind of super fighter. There you go.
Ben Askren just lost his place in the family tree. Kopylov is in.
Yeah, that's the perfect fighter right there. Kopylov and Chase Hooper. You combine those two together, you got the perfect prototype for the UFC. That left kick to the body, that was like the beginning of the end. It was beautiful, man. It almost looked like it was effortless, like the way he threw it, and then he just threw those hammers, you know, the hooks. Look at that, boom, man. And you know that hurt bad, like boom. Puna just his body shut down. He couldn't do anything.
Yep.
Southpaw and Southpaw crime.
Yeah, and when you look at Kopylov, aka Chase Hooper's older brother, you're right, man. He does have a lot of late finishes. Like there's a couple fights where he finished the fight in the 4th round. He has one first round finish, which was at the tail end of the first round. He has a lot of 2nd, 3rd round finishes and a lot of TKOs. And yeah, no submissions, just TKOs. I like this guy, man. And a lot of people are going to look at this performance for Soriano to pinpoint like his weaknesses. But I think a lot of people knew the weaknesses, right, before this fight. And Kopylov just weathered the storm and got the win, man. I like him. That's 2 in a row, back-to-back finishes for Kopylov. What do you do with him? Like, he's a prospect. You know, he's got 2 knockout finishes. I say you give him another, like, Puna Soriano level opponent, right? You want him to develop. How old is this kid? He's not even a kid. He's 31 years old, man. Like, okay, that changes a lot. He's 31. Like, basically, yeah. He's like in his prime or entering his prime. So do you give him a big step up in competition in the middleweight division, or do you give him another guy like Puna? Liam, what do you think?
I'd give him Darren Till after that last performance, clear him out of the top 15 once and for all, get that over with. But if we're not going to do that, I think somebody who's coming off of a loss like Jack Hermanson might have to defend that spot in the top 15, in the top 10. And I think somebody like Roman Kopylov is coming on. So I wouldn't be mad at him getting a shot to move up in the top 15. I mean, frankly, Middleweight is not a very inspiring top 15 right now. Needs a little bit of refreshing, I would say. Somebody who's 31, swinging hammers, and looks like they're, a completely different product than when they got to the UFC at 29. That's the kind of guy I want to see get an opportunity, and especially if he's going to keep the activity level up. I like this Roman Kopylov guy to keep taking steps up. So, maybe it's too much too soon fighting a good grappler like Jack Hermanson, but, I'd like to see him tested. Because if he's going to come on, and he's got to come on now, it's 31 years of age. He's pretty experienced. He's had 5-round fights. So I'd like to see what he can do. And he's training with some of the best guys in the world, cross-discipline in wrestling and other sports. I don't like to read too much into who people train with, but then you see the effects rub off. I thought he looked career best in this performance. So excited to see what he has next.
Chris, what do you do with Soriano? What do you do with Kopylov? Liam is talking about Darren Till, who's at number 15. I think Darren Till is going to be gone for a while. I think he's going to have to take a break and kind of like lead out of the top 15 eventually. That's what's going to happen to Darren Till. And then, he's going to be matched up with somebody that he could probably beat instead of a top contender. But Chris, what do you think about both these guys?
Yeah, I think for Soriano, give him someone that is about at his spot, a Dusko Todorovic or even like I feel like he just recently fought Nick Maximov, but even like a Adolfo Vieira, Jacob Malkoun, someone like that. I'm intrigued by the Darren Till idea if he was going to be back soon. Looking at the top 15 at middleweight, there are a lot of guys even in their like mid and upper 30s, and so I think he actually has a lot of time in that division left. I would love to see him fight someone like Eric Anders. I think Anders is kind of just outside the top 15. I love the thought of just kind of chucking him right into the rankings and being like, hey, new player, let's go for middleweight. But, from a developmental side, I'd love to see someone fight Eric Anders, who's really, really athletic. It's like, for Kopylov, it's like, you're growing, you're developing, you're adding muscle in between each fight. Let's put you up against another guy who's like also highly athletic and is going to give you an exhausting fight. Let's see how good your strength and conditioning really is. So Eric Anders would be my pick.
All right, there you go. The next fight, a top 15 clash between Raquel Pennington and Caitlin Vieira, a split decision win for Pennington. A lot of people did not agree with this outcome. Let's put the scorecards up and see what you guys think of how the judges scored this fight. Chris, let's start with you, man. Here's the scorecards. Like, do you agree? Is there one judge that you thought like, what the hell is he watching? Because usually that's what it is, right? What do you guys see?
Yeah, I mean, I scored it for Vieira. I think it, round 2. Yeah, I think everyone scored round 2 for Pennington. And it looks like 2 judges scored round 1 for Vieira, 1 for Pennington. A round 1 for Pennington is a pretty tough sell for me. Round 3 what felt like the closest round for me, but who was Mike Bell scoring that first round for Pennington? Seems like a little bit of a stretch for me. It seemed like Vieira started off well. I thought that she was landing the more damaging strikes in the first round, and Pennington kind of heated up as the fight went on. So I think that would be the scorecard I have the most issue with.
Liam, do you feel like this is payback for the Holly Holmes decision win for Vieira in their last fight? That's what some people would say.
That's what everybody's saying, but I actually thought that Ketlin Vieira won that fight against Holly Holm. I thought that was a bad fight. I did not think it was a great fight. I thought it was pretty boring, but I thought the more effective damage throughout was done by Ketlin Vieira. And at the end of the day, that's what I was trying to evaluate. I was seeing who was more effective with their fighting, and I thought that she was more effective in that fight. At one point, she almost popped Holly's head off with a choke attempt. It's like she just got closer to finishing the fight. I didn't think that Holly Holm was ever close to finishing that fight. So for me, Ketlin Vieira is an impressive fighter, and I thought she won once again. I thought it was a clear win. Ironically, I thought Sal D'Amato was the only one with the right scorecard in the building. It's like, of course, and everybody in the audience. But it for me is a problem systemically in our sport where we all have to do this song and dance where we say, you know, it was a close fight and it could have went either way. It's definitely not a robbery. But sometimes you could just watch a close fight and say, we all watched this close fight, and this close fight should have went to Ketlen Vieira. It was a close fight. Sure. Absolutely. Every round was close. You could talk about round 1. I thought was a pretty clear Ketlen Vieira round. Round 3, I thought was a pretty clear Ketlen Vieira round. So at the end of the day, round 2 was a clear round for Raquel Pennington. And that was the clearest round she had. That was the only clear round I felt she had. I thought it was a pretty easy fight to score at the end of the day. A close fight that was clear and easy to score, 29-28, Ketlen Vieira. But at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of money on Ketlen Vieira. I'll tell you the truth, guys. So was I surprised when it was read off? No, I wasn't at all.
Man, if you look at the statistics, you know, Ketlen Vieira landed more, but Pennington landed more significant strikes. Man, this whole significant strikes thing, like, they need to do something about that, right? Like, how do you know if it's a significant strike? It just baffles me. Like, are you getting punched? Are you taking the impact? Do you know which punches are significant strikes? I feel like significant strikes, there shouldn't be 80 significant strikes in a fight. Significant strikes should be something that is significant. But how do you
why was her head bleeding all over the place if the strikes weren't significant? That's what I was curious about. Why did she have 9 different cuts on her face from that? I don't know. But all those insignificant strikes just busted her all up.
Exactly. And now Pennington, she's sitting at 5 wins in a row, like, just quietly. Seriously, like, really quietly, she's won 5 in a row. She's beaten Vieira, Ladd, Chaisson, Kienzad, and Renault. Some of those wins are decent. Some of those wins are, I don't know what to do with Pennington. She's ranked number 5. She's pretty much fought everybody, right? She's pretty much fought everybody in the division. She just beat Vieira, who's number 2. Do you give her the next title shot? I don't think so. You know why? Because remember what happened the last time Pennington fought Nunes? Remember that fight, Chris?
Yeah, I'm trying to forget it. Yeah, I've been trying to forget it all these years. That was a bad loss. And it's a hard sell. Yeah, it's such a hard sell, even with a 5-fight win streak. I think if it was a 5-5 win streak where she was knocking people out and, you know, there felt like a real threat. I mean, she has gotten better. Raquel Pennington has definitely gotten better since she fought Amanda Nunes last. And who knows where Amanda Nunes is at right now. I'm not saying it would be the exact same fight, but it is such a hard sell. I would love to see Pennington fight Juliana Pena for a number 1 contender fight. And I've always been a big Irene Aldana fan, but I would love to see her get to fight Amanda Nunes next, just to give her another fresh matchup. I feel bad for Raquel Pennington making her, you know, piece together a 6-fight win streak at bantamweight of all divisions, like one of like the least interesting fights, or at least interesting divisions in the UFC. But you know, I hate to say like that fight doesn't sell, but like no one is going to be excited about that fight. Very, very few people are excited about that fight if it happens.
Liam, what makes you excited about Pennington? Anything exciting about her?
I thought that it is impressive that she was able to weather the storm. You know, I didn't think that she looked like she was in the greatest shape for this fight. I thought that there's a lot of reasons that Ketlen was probably going to win, but, you know, I thought that she gritted through some adversity. I thought that, you know, she could have quit when the going got tough. She ended up sticking it out, even, you know, going out defiantly in that 3rd round for, you know, I thought she was in a compromised position. She's got, you know, she's got a woman trying to take her back, but she's still throwing punches over her shoulder. So she's still a dog, and, you know, she will fight for your dollars. You know, if you're talking about an underdog, Raquel Pennington, she's coming out there to win every time. She's a very gritty fighter, and she's not the most athletically gifted. She's not the most, you know, blessed with all these things. She's just really hardworking, and, you know, seems like she's put together a pretty functional game plan for winning these fights, especially over 3 rounds. I think 5 rounds against Amanda Nunes is a lot to ask of any woman, You know, Juliana Pena over 2 rounds was a handful. Over 5 rounds, it was one of the worst beatings we've ever seen in the UFC. So I think that for Amanda Nunes, it's about what could motivate her to get out of bed. It's about what could motivate her as a challenge. And that's the one thing that I don't think would excite her, you know, is going back to beat up this girl that she viciously beat up pretty easily. So that would also be interesting in terms of Raquel's chances, though, if she does get that fight. You know, Amanda Nunes ain't going to be getting up at 5 a.m. to go run. And she's like, oh, no, this one's already taken care of, boys. She already quit on the stool in round 4 last time. We're good. And I think it could be a whole different ballgame. Because, you know, a couple of years have passed for Amanda. You never know when the bottom's going to drop out for her. And I think when she lost to Pena, a lot of people thought it did, and myself included. So I think that could always happen again, where she just decides, hey, I'm done with all this. I got a lot of money. I got a nice family, and I could get out of here right now if I just tap. And I think that that's always in the back of my mind now. When Amanda's going to be fighting, it's like if she faces some resistance, she's in there with a dog like Raquel Pennington who wants to be in there and isn't just going to give it away. You know, what does that do? I think that is at least the way that they will sell it if she gets that title shot. You know, Amanda, is she really going to get up for this fight? And I think that is an open question.
Yeah, I think Nunes, the best case scenario for her, like you said, she needs fresh blood. She needs someone new to fight. You know, I mean, there's rematches. You could only have so many. You know, I like them if they're competitive, but I don't think the Pena fight is something that we want to see right away. Pena versus Pennington for the number 1 contender. I like it. Why not? You know, I mean, they got to fight somebody. And yeah, Aldana, let's put her in there. Let's see what she can do. Go to Mexico. You know, Aldana's representing Mexico. Let's get an event in Mexico City or something like that. Pay-per-view. Let's see what happens at Elevation. You know, that Elevation that jacks people up, right? We've seen it happen to, you know, the best of them. So let's see what happens. Now, the fight before this, which was the opener for the main event or the main card, was Umar Nurmagomedov, and he goes in there and touches Hyon Barcelos, something that I never expected would happen in this fight. And it was like the perfectly placed punch at the perfect moment to get the knockout, because it didn't even seem like he threw the punch that hard. It just landed in the right spot. Let's check out this, and I would like to get your reaction, Liam, of the knockout and what you think of Umar, man. Undefeated. Nobody seems like he wants to fight this guy. This guy's he's a handful.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, a lot of people were saying you got to bet Hany Barcelos. You never get a fighter like this at this price. And I was like, against this guy, I was like, I don't want to stand in front of this guy at any price. Like, not right now. I understand why you can't lay, you know, $1,000 to win $100. It's an MMA fight. People roll their ankle, you know, slip on a banana peel, but this guy just showed up in perfect form. I thought that this was the performance of a lifetime. I thought he looked really, really sharp throughout. I didn't think Hany Barcelos looked bad at all. You know, I thought Puna kind of underperformed expectation. I thought Hany Barcelos was looking great. He was landing some combinations when he could get into the pocket. But then as the fight wore on, what I expected was that somebody who has long-range tools, who wants to keep you on the outside, and who can dictate where the range of the fight will take place, that's a hard guy to deal with, especially when you want to box. When Hany Barcelos gets you coming forward, then he can figure out how to react, and that could be a reactive takedown. That could be he hits you with 2 hooks at a time and then moves off to the side and throws a jab. Like, he has many answers when you're coming at him. But when he's forced to chase and try and reach out with his punches, he was just a sitting duck for a lot of the counters from a guy who's much younger, a lot faster. And I did think that the writing was a little bit on the wall for Hany Barcelos, in the sense that Victor Henry is not a huge puncher. And he had him, you know, time traveling a couple times in that fight. And that was, to me, a little bit telling that Hany Barcelos still has all the skills, but the durability and some of the things that are the reasons why we don't really see guys at 33, 34, 35, 36 continue their runs at bantamweight. They start to fall off because it's such a meat grinder of a division. The average age is a lot younger than some of these other divisions in the UFC. And you have a very hard time keeping up. If the speed drops off just a tick, these other guys are lightning quick, and it's very hard to deal with. I think Umar, one of the faster guys in the division, and he showed that last night.
Did you bet on this fight?
No, I didn't bet on this fight. I told people on my show, I was like, Umar Nurmagomedov by knockout at plus 700. That does not make sense to me. but I did not bet it, and then I lived to regret it.
Chris, what do you do with Umar, man? Because he was talking crazy on Ricky Simone, and he's pretty much talking crazy about everybody in the division. Because I'm pretty sure he's had many fight offers turned down.
Yeah, I love that Ricky Simone fight. I hope that's what they do next. Simone is like, I think he's number 8 in the division, and that fight just makes a lot of sense. Simone's another guy that's he's gonna shoot on him. He's gonna try and wrestle, hit him with the scrambles. I don't know. It's like I don't really know who's like a bad matchup for Umar at this point. I mean, he showed that he's got that one punch knockout power. Most of his wins are by submission, and he's still really young. He's huge for bantamweight. He's like, sometimes I forget that he's a bantamweight. I think he's like a featherweight or a lightweight. But I love that Ricky Simone fight. Put it as like a co-main or even a main event here in Portland. He lives right across the river from me, and so like that'd be awesome. UFC was supposed to come to Portland April 2020. They had to cancel the show. Put that as the main event, 5 rounds here at the Moda Center in Portland. I love it.
Yeah, that's a good matchup. You got Song Yadong's flying around out there. You got Pedro Munoz. Dominic Cruz is flying around out there somewhere in the commentating booth. People talking about Merab. I think that's just Merab deserves better than that, right? Merab put in his work in the division. He should get matched up with somebody much bigger. I like Merab I think Merab's gonna fight Peter Yan. This is my prediction. I think that's the fight that they're gonna make. What about the prelims? What do you guys like about the prelims? Was there any matchups? Was there any fighters on the prelims when you were like, yeah, that kid, we're gonna see a lot from him this year? Liam, let's start with you.
Alan Nascimento would be my pick here. This was a fight that I thought was set up to introduce people to how skilled this guy is. They kind of gave him a meat grinder schedule off the rip, especially when you're a grappling heavy fighter and you're getting the Tagir Ulanbekovs, the Howlian Paivas, like some guys that really know how to grapple. Like, if you want to take it on the feet with Howlian Paiva, you might be able to beat him there. You might be able to hurt him. You might be able to rock him. He doesn't have great defense, but on the ground, he's very slick. He's very dynamic. He's experienced. So there's these guys that have put on these fun fights with him that have made it a scrap. But Alan Nascimento really has high level skills. And I felt like this was a fight where you saw on the Contender Series, Carlos Hernandez got his back taken by Daniel Barras. He was put in a dangerous situation, but Alan Nascimento, he wasn't there for the, being slick and trying to get out of these positions and stuff like that. It was clinical. It was, pure jujitsu. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and it's over. And that was really beautiful to watch. I just thought it was an impressive performance and, maybe a forebearing of what's to come. I think that a lot of guys at 125 pounds might get choked by Alan Nascimento.
Yeah, BC, Baby Charles. That's what, a lot of people call him now. Look at him. Look at him. Look at the highlight. The boy is on him like a snake, right? Look at that. That's tight.
Awesome.
He had nowhere to go, right?
Nope.
The body triangle.
Palm to palm standing. Brutal. Brutal. And I love that transition, man. The body triangle is the new meta of MMA because you can't get away. Because you could stand up, you could roll, but you can't get away. Especially with like guys now, they have these like exercises to strengthen your squeeze with your legs that people are doing now. Like it didn't exist, I don't think, a few years back. But now they're building this leg strength. So when they do lock down that body triangle, you can't get out, and it hurts. It hurts. You know what I mean? If you've been in a body triangle, if you've been stuck in a body triangle, you know how much it hurts.
Yeah.
The only way to tap really high belts for me is this body triangle, and I'm not kidding. The body triangle is an insanely powerful move.
Chris, what do you see from the prelims, man? Like, who do you like?
Yeah, well, kind of going into this card, one of the guys that I was most interested to watch was Javid Basharat from Afghanistan. I really have been high on this guy and kind of like sticking with my niche of Asian MMA. He was the guy that I was most interested in this card, and fighting Mateus Mendoza, like that's one of those guys that we're going to see a lot of highlight reel finishes from this guy going forward. It's like not fair that this was his debut fight because he didn't really have a lot of hype going in with him. But as soon as the fight started, you knew like this guy is dangerous. This guy's throwing everything in the kitchen sink. He's not just, it's not just wild, but he's like intelligently attacking with all types of different kinds of offense. And, Javid, he was tested in a lot of different ways. But what we really saw from him was like incredible distance, incredible placement of the jab. He was able to defend a lot of takedowns, get up when he was on his back really quickly. I think it was like, when you think about fights, there's fights that like they're there to build your highlight reel, like the Alan Nascimento fight. That was just a fight that made him look really good. This is a fight for Javid Basharat that is going to that's going to show his development, and it's going to give him a lot of things to develop from, because Mendoza was throwing offense from so many different angles. He wasn't just trying to knock him out, but he was also trying to take him down and submit him too. And, Basharat showed that he was able to work his way out of all of these situations. The takedowns, he showed that he was able to keep that distance. It was more about the defense almost than the offense in the fight, but he was able to tag Mendoza with a lot of amazing shots where he just like barely stepped into range, pop. And he looked incredible. He's one of those guys that I'm just really looking forward to going forward in the division. I don't know who he fights next, but he was definitely a really exciting fight for him, and it's a win that's going to age really, really well. I have a good feeling about.
Yeah, I like Mendoza, man. I never even seen him fight before this, and the whole like shooting him in the head, in the face off. I was just like, yeah, I kind of like this dude's attitude. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I don't like his attitude, but because he's a guy that's debuting. But when he started fighting, man, you knew that something like I don't know. He just kind of reminded me of Davison Figueiredo. I don't know why. Like he just kind of gives me those vibes that he's just a wild man. And he's gonna lose some, he's gonna win some, but he's gonna make it crazy. And Javid, he had a great he made some great adjustments in that fight, right? And it was a good fight to watch, but I think a lot of people expected Javid to dominate and dominate more and get a finish. It didn't happen, but like you said, it's gonna age well. For me, I think the flyweight showed out in this on the prelims, man. Nascimento looked really good. Charles Johnson looked pretty good too. He had that debut loss against Makaev, and who Makaev is, right? He's touted as the next champion already for some reason, even though he hasn't even cracked the top 15. But Charles Johnson, he's cut his teeth, man, in the regional scene, and he's done really well. I feel like that was just a hiccup, and now we're seeing the better version of Charles Johnson, and we're gonna see a big year for flyweights, especially. I think a lot of the flyweights are going to come out and become stars. Nascimento for Brazil. Nascimento versus Charles Johnson. That sounds like a good fight to me. Even though I don't really like prospect versus prospect too much, but that's, whatever. Flyweights, you're only a couple wins away from fighting for the title. Flyweight, for some reason, is like the heavyweight division, right? Like you beat a couple of guys, next thing you know, you're like in title contention. So we'll see what happens. Now, that was UFC Vegas 67, and a decent card to kick off the year, man. Not like the most crazy card, but a decent card at the Apex. I expect Apex cards to be like this for the rest of the year. I feel like the UFC's plan is they're gonna make these Apex cards with guys that most fans don't know about, so the casual fans won't really watch the Apex cards, but when the pay-per-views come around, they'll be stacked. They'll be, juiced to the gills, so to say. Liam, what do you see in this, the pattern of the UFC right now, with them signing and releasing certain fighters, signing certain fighters, contender series, all this stuff that's going on? Yeah, Mike.
Excuse me, sorry about that. I think the UFC's been making a couple of rare fumbles, pretty clear fumbles in terms of the guys that they're keeping and the guys that they're letting go. They talked about openly, they meant to re-sign Shane Burgos, and something in the paperwork we just forgot. It's pretty unacceptable. I would have thought, they went to New York. He was basically the only New York star on the card, sold out the building. Has a pretty loyal local contingency. that I happen to be a part of. So, shout out to Section 9. But in all seriousness, now that you have the Francis Ngannou situation, another, fighter that's, maybe starting to get towards the end of their prime, but still obviously in their prime earning years in a big position commercially, and they could still make some more money. They could still have 4, 5, 6 big fights, before their run starts to taper off. And I think that, when you look at Francis Ngannou's trajectory, now he might only have to have 2 or 3 or 4 fights to ride off into the sunset with more money than he ever imagined starting this combat sports bid. And the one thing about Francis that's a little bit different, he is a little bit older, but this is still heavyweight where guys compete for quite a long time. And I think now he can have, options. He can take the celebrity boxing route. He's got options with Jake Paul as well. And you're seeing a little bit more of this opening of the ecosystem in combat sports. Guys are starting to go other places because it's at the end of the day about feeding your family. It's about money. It's about how much I can earn for doing this. And so guys don't really care necessarily about the prestige. We just saw AJ McKee re-sign with Bellator as opposed to going to the UFC because when a lot of guys think about, but now he can't prove he's the best or something. Number one, that's an opinion. But number two, who cares? he can make more money for himself and his family and potentially have easier fights. And as Chael Sonnen always said, it's about the easiest fights in front of the biggest crowd for the most money. How else would you want a career to go? Sounds like a pretty good plan.
You make a great point, man. AJ McKee. Everybody's like, he's going to the UFC. He wants to fight the best in the world. And, if Bellator is going to pay you 7 figures to fight, why would you go to the UFC where people are fighting for their contracts? You know what I mean? When's the last time you heard like a Bellator fighter or even Bellator say like, he's on the losing streak, he's lost 3 in a row? There's no rule like that in any other promotion, right? We always talk about the 3-fight losing streak rule. Who made that? Who created the 3-fight losing streak rule? When did that even start? Like, I don't even remember, right? It's been so long that, you lose 3 fights, you're going to get cut by the UFC. That even the fighters are like, it's like ingrained in their head. Like this, my back against the wall. But now in 2023, it's not even 3 fights anymore. You could lose 1 and get cut. You could lose 2 and get cut. It just depends on your situation. It just depends on how the UFC views you as a commodity, right? And that's what they view you. They view you as a commodity. This is fighting. You're a commodity. You're a prize fighter. And that's why money is so important, right? If you're not getting paid the most or the amount that you deserve, then you should go somewhere where they're going to pay you the amount that you deserve. And Francis Ngannou, I'm happy for him, man. I'm happy that he's going to go out. He's 36 years old. Like you said, heavyweights, they fight into their 40s, early 40s, mid 40s. How old is AllStar Overeem right now? The man is an animal, right? Still, and he's way older. For Francis, I see him re-signing with the UFC. This is my prediction. He's going to re-sign with the UFC after he goes away for a couple of years. Because you know why? People are like, oh, Dana White doesn't like him. Blah. It doesn't matter. Dana White doesn't like a lot of people. But Dana White likes money, right? And if you're going to gross money, Dana White's going to sign you. Like, he didn't like Ben Askren. He traded for Ben Askren, right? He didn't like Tito.
That's because he didn't like Mighty Mouse either, in fairness. He was like, I could get rid of one problem to get another. All right.
Well, the lesser of the problems, I guess. Like, you could use Ben Askren to catapult other people, and that's what exactly happened. And it kind of worked in Dana White's favor, right? Like, he did it. If you look at Tito Ortiz, Dana White kept him around. He hated Tito Ortiz for 8 fights, and he lost 7 straight, right? Until he beat bettor, I believe. And then who else was it? Ken Shamrock. He hated Ken Shamrock, but he kept him around so Tito Ortiz could beat his ass, right? Like, money. It's all about money. I think Francis will be back, but he's going to go out there and get a big payday, a few big paydays. And even if he doesn't go back to the UFC, some other promotion will pick him up. PFL will pick him up. Bellator will pick him up. Somebody. Or maybe he might just do a world tour and just be like, all right, I'll fight once in Ryzen against some sumo wrestler for $3 million. And I'll go over here and fight for KSW against some random, bodybuilder for, $500 million. I don't know. MMA ecosystem. What do you think, man? What do you think of this whole Francis Ngannou situation?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like it's a win-win for just about everybody involved. I mean, I think the biggest loser from this is the UFC, and I agree. Like I'm happy for him. I could see him maybe fighting like once a year and making huge paydays. I'd love to see him get into boxing, and even for just 1 or 2 fights, just because that is something he's talked about for such a long time, and I would love to see him be able to strap on those gloves. I think you're right. I think he's going to come back to the UFC after not too long. I wouldn't even be surprised if he signed with the UFC again this year. I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC was finally just like, look, here's $20 million. I don't know if it was a money thing that he left, or if it was more of a like, I want to get out there and just have different experiences. Maybe some of that will be revealed in the next couple of weeks, why he actually left, if it really was just because of money. But I think he's in an incredible position. The thing is just like, sometimes like heavyweight in other promotions around the world, kind of like it comes and goes. You think about like at one point heavyweight was really good in Strikeforce. At one point heavyweight was really good in Bellator, or at least like it was pretty strong. I still was never like putting it at the same level as the UFC, but like I would not say that this is one of those times. Like if you look out at heavyweight and the other promotions, this is not their strongest moments in PFL or Bellator. So I don't really know. There's not really a lot out there in MMA that excites me personally. I hope that he tries out boxing, or I hope, even like a Mariusz Pudzianowski and KSW, that gets me more excited than even thinking about like who's PFL's top guy or even who's Bellator's top guy. I'd love to see him in some freak show fights. To use that word, I think that'd be fun. I think he can make a lot of money, even though we all know he's probably gets he's going to get an easy win. But happy for him. I hope that this raises the ceiling a little bit on what fighters can make in MMA. I'm happy to see someone walk and push back on the UFC a little bit, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, man. Like I support Francis Ngannou. I support like what he's trying to do, and I think that if he's successful in what he does, it opens a lot of doors for other fighters coming up. It opens doors for the next generation of fighters. It might not have an impact right now, but it will have an impact eventually. I think Francis Ngannou will fight John Jones. I wouldn't lose that dream right now at this moment. I think Francis Ngannou comes back to the UFC, fights John Jones. He gets an immediate title shot if John Jones is the champion. The UFC, they can't let that slide, man. They've already let it slide too many times. Fedor versus Lesnar. Even Dana White regrets that, right? He let that slide. Like that was probably one of the biggest fights of all time. He dropped the ball. Jones, GSP versus Anderson Silva. Like fights like that, fights that people want to see. You can't let that shit slide anymore. Pay-per-views have to be much bigger nowadays. And especially with the price hike, Liam. You paying for those pay-per-views, there's like $1,000 a pay-per-view. Next thing you know, 2030 UFC pay-per-views, $999. That's what's gonna end up being, man.
I do unfortunately have the displeasure of paying for these pay-per-views, and man, it's a chunk. It's a chunk. 10 units. Come on, they're asking for a lot out you. So I don't think I don't think that the price reflects the value of the product every time either. Truthfully, I feel like the price was fair when it was like $50 or $55, and it's not like they're giving us better cards than they were then. In some ways, the quality of cards, especially lower down, has gotten worse at times. And, sometimes it feels like the fight cards that they try and stack the most end up turning out lackluster. Not every time, but it just feels like, the UFC needs a little bit of tinkering. I don't think they had one pay-per-view break 1 million last year, off the top of my head. So, without the biggest stars like Conor McGregor active, you kind of just come to a point where they have a formula for getting, 500,000 to 800,000, but can they break that mark? Can they build the next star? Who's that going to be? That's the open question this year. And I think there's obvious contenders. Khamzat Chimaev is one of them. who seems like he's poised to take that next big step, but, he's not the champion right now. And so I don't think that the UFC has that one premier banner champion, which is something that they're used to having in the past as well.
Man, they want Conor to come back so bad. You know they do. They want him. Like, Conor's dealing with, like, gay rumors and, USADA issues and all kinds of stuff, but they want him to come back. Even just once this year. Even one fight this year, they want him. And I think he will. I think this year he will be back. We'll see him fight somebody. He'll fight whoever he wants to fight. He'll fight Hezbollah. They probably put that together for some reason, for some wackiness. But yeah, Francis Ngannou, good luck to him. But intertwined with this whole situation is Francis Ngannou. He gets stripped, aka relinquishes the title. And now we got a new title fight, a vacant title fight between Jon Jones and Cyril Gane at UFC 285, which is not too far away, man. I'm excited for this fight. I think this is a good matchup. Chris, early prediction, early breakdown of this fight.
And when you think about these two guys, Gane and Jones, there's a lot of similarities between the two. They're both really technical, throw a lot of like single strikes from a lot of different angles, really like mix up the kind of strikes that they throw. And so there's a lot of similarities between the two, but I think like Jones, like, you got to remember, like, Jones at his core, he's a Greco-Roman wrestler, and we saw what Francis Ngannou of all people could do in the wrestling against Gane. And so it's, for the strike, we have no idea. That the short answer is we have no idea what Jon Jones is going to look like. But if I'm just imagining like a bigger version of Jon Jones at light heavyweight against Gane, I got to think like Jones is going to go for the takedowns. He's going to clinch. He's going to take him down. And it's hard for me to pick against Jones, knowing what he's capable of doing if he just goes back to his bread and butter. But, you pair that with him being gone for so long, and Gane is Gane is an exceptional talent. He's done incredible things in like the shortest amount of time in MMA. And so like there's some variables and some X factors in this fight, but if I was a betting man, I would put my money on Jones just because of what Ngannou was able to do on one leg.
Liam, Jones, heavyweight, 80 pounds heavier. I don't know how much heavier it will be, but he's much heavier, much bigger. He probably won't be as like defined. A lot of people will like body shame him even as a heavyweight, most likely when he comes out and weighs in. But what do you see in this one against Gane?
I think that this is a really tricky fight for Cyril Gane. I thought that Cyril Gane was on the verge of completing his own Francis Ngannou story arc, to tell you the truth. Last year I did think that Francis was going to get the jump on Gane. He had the 5-round experience. He had been working in the United States with a bunch of wrestlers at Extreme Couture, really trying to give himself that leg up. And that's what showed. That was the difference in the fight, in my opinion. Gane was training with Fernand Lopez. He was over in France. The quality and the level of wrestling, just as a broad level of speaking, is not as high there. That's why people train in other places. That's why they get looks. They bring in fighters from other places just to have people that are ingrained in that culture. You don't hear about a lot of French wrestling champions. It's just not where they're from. They're from the United States. They're from Russia. That's why you see guys come out of that part of the world and do it. And there's other places as well. But, you just have to look at where, people are succeeding in some of these skill sets. And I think that Jon Jones, he fits a betting mold for me, which is that them New York boys are going to teach you how to wrestle. I'm a little bit biased now, reporting to you live from the great state, but I'll tell you guys, it's been a profitable betting strategy over the last little while. Aljamain Sterling, a New York-based wrestler, Jon Jones, Endicott, New York, stand up. These are guys that are very talented. Patchy Mix, another one, where you're seeing a lot of guys from New York, don't always get the plaudits, and they talk about Iowa, they talk about Pennsylvania, they talk about California and some of these places, but them New York boys are going to teach you how to wrestle once again. And a lot of champions been from New York teaching you how to wrestle. And I think John Jones is coming for that belt. I do think that he is, not to be slept on. Y'all must have forgot if you think John Jones isn't one of the hardest fights to sign, period, in the UFC. No one wants to fight that guy because he's extremely dangerous. And every heavyweight that's ever trained with him has said John Jones would come in and be the heavyweight champion tomorrow because he would be. So I think this is a very fascinating fight. The only thing that makes it intriguing, in my view, is that John Jones has been gone. So maybe he has regressed. Maybe he finally can be knocked out. Maybe Ciryl Gane has somehow learned how to wrestle better than John Jones, who's been doing it since he was a kid. But I don't think any of that's true. I think if John Jones decides you're going to the ground, young man, you're going to the ground if you're Ciryl Gane. And I think that John Jones, people forget that on top, he's murderous. He's got some of the most vicious ground and pound in the history of mixed martial arts, and he has submission threats, and he can operate from top. And he can move to positions, and he can flow. And he Kimura'd Vitor Belfort, and he choked Lyoto Machida into a bag of potatoes. Like, people forget how dangerous John Jones really is. And, he kind of got bored at light heavyweight. I truly felt that way. I think that people overestimated some of the guys that he was having close fights with because he was having close fights with them. He was barely hanging on to a career, half interested. He said, I'll be back in a couple of years. They'll pay me more money. Now what happens? Their heavyweight champion walks away. They are in desperate need of a new heavyweight champion and a new big fight. So they call the guy that they didn't want to call. They offer him a bag that they didn't want to offer him. And here he is once again to reclaim what he's never lost, which is that championship belt. And I don't like John Jones. He beat my hero. I was the guy screaming out, stop yelling, that's an Olympic hero, when he knocked out Daniel Cormier, and everybody's going crazy at Buffalo Wild Wings. But I'll tell you this, John Jones is a scary fighter, and no one has ever fought better in the UFC. Not that we've seen, not that I've seen. I've been watching this stuff for a very long time. I think that Volkanovski, the best pound for pound fighter in the world. I said that. I thought that was true. I think, it was a dangerous call to put it on the line against Makhachev. But then when you look at this guy, John Jones, he has an argument to walk back in. If he wins this fight, he's number one pound for pound in the world again. Because who's ever beat the guy? Nobody.
When you look at this matchup stylistically, right, it's the best for Jones in the heavyweight division at that top 5. It's the best one. I thought if Jones is going to get, and I don't understand why he's the underdog. Like, people need to throw money on Jones right now. It's plus money. Right
no, let them keep betting the other way. Let's get Jones plus 250. No, I mean, seriously, guys, Ciryl Gane, how could he lose? Come on, he's tough. He's French. There's a lot to like about him. Just go bet 100, 100,000, 100 million, whatever you need to on Gane, and I'll take the other side.
Yeah, James Krause needs to get his 1%ers on the
James
case.
Krause, keep your tentacles off this fight for all things holy, please.
He can move the line, with his 1%ers. Yeah, Jones. I look at him as the favorite in this fight. I think even if Jones went into this fight as the light heavyweight John Jones, but on a full camp, motivated, all of that good stuff, right? Because I feel like he's really motivated now. I feel like he took some time away. His love for the sport most likely, reignited throughout that time, right? He's gaining weight, he's lifting, he's just like, he's become this guy. I think he's become a new version of himself, right? Even though he was one of the greatest of all time already. And just the skill set, man. The skill set is undeniable. Like, Gane, I don't know if John Jones goes in there and decides, okay, I'm gonna out kickbox the kickboxer. Yes, we're gonna get a more competitive fight, I believe. But if John Jones goes in there and says, like, no, I'm going to go in there like I went in there against Chael Sonnen. Remember when he went in there against Chael Sonnen? He was really motivated against Chael Sonnen, right? He looked like he wanted to kill Chael Sonnen. And I feel like that's the John Jones we're going to get in this one, heading into the heavyweight division. He's going to want to go in there and kill everybody because why? People are doubting him. A lot of people are doubting him. Like, they're doubting, like, his ability. Of course, we're talking highly of John Jones, but there's a lot of people that are doubting John Jones. And one thing you know about John Jones, he likes to read the comments. And people will go at him hard. And I think he gets driven by that. And I feel like mentally he's going to be there. And if Gane beats John Jones, I would be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked. Like, I'll be like, oh, I'll be surprised, right? I think John Jones, he has this one. I think like he's going to be the champion, and he might be the champion for a long time. But Stipe's going to be waiting in the wings, man. I want to see that fight, to be honest with you. I was more excited for Stipe versus Jones rather than Gane, but you know, Gane seems like he's a little bit easier to deal with. You know, the UFC seemed like they like him, because remember when Dana White was asked about Gane's contract, he's like, Gane has a contract. What does that say? There was no negotiation. It's like you fight John Jones or you fight nobody. And Jones signed what, a new 8-fight deal with the UFC ahead of this. Ridiculous, man. And you know he's getting paid crazy. He's probably getting paid the money that they were gonna give Francis Ngannou. That's probably what happened, right? They probably gave Francis Ngannou a 8-fight deal, offered him an 8-fight deal for that amount of money. He didn't take it. He's like, all right, we'll give it to John Jones. That's what probably happened. But yeah, excited for this match.
No, they called John with a number minus $1 million. They're like, yeah, just knock a couple off there. Yeah, shave a few off there. John won't know the difference.
You know, Francis called John and said, like, John, come on, dude. Like, this is the numbers, man.
I would love that.
Get your money. Get your money. Get your money, John. Now, the other fight that they announced, you know, a couple of pay-per-view headlines that they announced over the weekend is Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman, UFC 286 in London. The trilogy fight, the first fight, Edwards won. The second fight, Usman had probably one of the greatest comeback victories of all time in the history of the sport. Man, but you got to look at it like this. That second fight was in Denver, I believe. It was at Elevation. So we got to really dissect that. Yeah, it was at that time, right? So I wonder if what Leon's going to look like without that elevation. Because Usman trains at elevation, right? So he's used to that. So we saw Usman at, I don't know if it at his best, but we saw him cruising, you know, like in that second fight until he got knocked out. Edwards visibly looked like he was fatigued and he was pacing himself in that fight. And, you know, I don't want to say it was luck, but sometimes luck is involved in fighting, right? And it's perfect shot, perfect placement, head kick, boom, dead. Third fight, I don't know what to expect. What do you expect, Chris, in this one?
Yeah, that's a good thought. I hadn't even really thought about how the elevation might play into that, especially also with Leon fighting at home, having the home crowd supporting him. He didn't really, I mean, obviously aside from the head kick, he didn't do a lot in that second fight that really gave me confidence to pick him in a third fight. I mean, yeah, like I just said, like the head kick, he won the fight, but I have a feeling that like Kamaru Usman, he's going to come out with a little bit more urgency to take Leon out of there. Or he may even just try to play it safe and wrestle him the whole time. And I'm not really sure what to expect out of this fight. I think Usman's in a tough spot because he's going into the guy that just knocked him out, gave him a loss that's going to be hard to come back from. You know, a lot of guys, they look good and then they have a big loss like this, you know, like they got knocked out with a head kick and, you know, everything came crashing down. How is his confidence going to be? Is he going to be the same fighter, especially when he's going across the pond, fighting someone in their own backyard? There's a lot of mental things that go into this fight that are playing against Kamaru Usman. So that's what I'm going to be most interested in this fight going into it is what are the mental games? How does Kamaru seem week of the fight? Does he seem confident? Does he seem reserved? Is he fired up? Is he going to be overconfident? You know, we saw that with people like Joanna Jędrzejczyk. You could kind of tell something was a little bit off going into those rematches with Rose, that she was a little bit overconfident, or even like, you know, Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm. So I think that's what I'm going to be looking for as this fight ramps up is Kamaru Usman's demeanor. Leon Edwards, he's got everything in his favor right now, and he's got a lot of confidence, and it doesn't mean he's going to have to make some adjustments to his game plan, but he's got now like 2 fights and almost 8 rounds to look at. to pick things apart. And you know, this fight's been brewing for a while. As soon like even the night of you know, that night back in August in Salt Lake City, like they were already basically declaring that this trilogy fight was going to happen. So he's had a lot of time to think about this. I want to pick Usman in this, but it's close to even for me. I'll say that.
They're fighting in London. I don't think that will have any bearing. Like elevation to me is a factor, but like a location, not so much. Especially with the UFC. You know, the UFC is not going to have no shenanigans. No one's going to get poisoned. You know, and like in other combat sports, people are getting poisoned if they fly to like Russia or something like that, or even in Thailand, man, there's people getting poisoned before fights. But Liam, does Edwards have a shot? Can he do what he did in the second fight, but just do it earlier, like in the first round?
You know, as a matter of fact, I bet Leon Edwards against Kamaru Usman. So that was one of my favorite bets of all time. Not only because he got the big head kick knockout and because I made a lot of coins. I was very happy about that fact. But moreover.
But how were you the first four rounds, though? How were you the first 4 rounds?
This is the thing. In the first round, people forget that Leon won. Yeah. And he took him down. He was the first man in UFC history to take down Kamaru Usman. And it wasn't like, got like a quick double leg and then Kamaru popped right back up to his feet. John Jones in DC, you think of, those kind of like ego takedowns. No, it was a takedown into the full mount where Kamaru had to really address the takedown. He kind of hit that. It's one of my favorite takedowns, a body lock, outside step right into the full mount. That's why it's so beautiful. You use a trip and it's feet to back. We call it in wrestling, 6-point move. And he advanced right to a dominant position, put Kamaru in danger, put Kamaru on the back foot. And I thought that forced a very conservative, wrestling heavy approach out of Kamaru. What had we seen from Kamaru in the fights prior? He had fallen in love with the hands. I want to be out here and strike. I feel confident as a striker. I'll go with anybody. I'll knock out Masvidal. But then he didn't want to stand with this guy and he got taken down. So he's like, now I'm in an ego fight. Now I have to wrestle. And I think he wrestled himself into a hole where then he's wrestling to just hold him against the fence. At the end of the fight, the referee says separate. They separate. Leon's got a chance to work from space. He's not really feeling so good. So he's got his hands, kind of mid-level. Again, you mentioned the fact it's at elevation. So a guy who's known for his selling point cardio has neutralized the guy to the point where he couldn't really use a lot of energy. And now he's used all his energy. He's standing there on E and he just got blasted in the face. And I thought that it was, the blessing and a curse to what Leon Edwards does. He's an extremely efficient fighter. That's why he doesn't get all that many finishes. That's why sometimes people label him as boring. He does a lot of really small, intricate details that make the fight work. He'll move you around in the clinch. He'll find these small little positions where he can take advantage. He'll get to a top half guard and stick around there and not work to get to an even more dominant position. He'll just want to hold from a good spot. So I think that this is a really challenging fight for Kamaru because, number one, he's got to make sure his wrestling's on point. His knees are a disaster. I predicted at the beginning of last year that Kamaru was going to lose the belt at some point. That's why I made the bet on Leon. Was I a little bit hesitant? Yes. Was I thinking Kamaru's time has to be up soon? Yeah. He's been in a ton of really difficult fights. He got buzzed by Gilbert Burns. It's not like he's getting out of all these fights completely unscathed. 5-round fight after 5-round fight after 5-round fight, that's going to take a ton out of you. And then on top of that, it's his second career in combat sports. How many former wrestlers have we seen done in by injuries early? I hate to say it's going to happen to me one day. It's like we put our bodies through this torment. It's a good skill set. It gives you a mental edge over some of your opponents, but then it breaks you down over time and you can't keep doing this forever. And I think that's one of the things that we saw from Kamaru. He wrestled himself into the ground. And I would be surprised to see a better physical performance. So we're going to have to see a better tactical performance. He's going to have to pace himself just a little bit better. He's going to have to keep the distance for various portions, and he's going to have to improve his defense because he was open to be hit by Colby Covington and Colby couldn't put him away. He was open to be hit by Gilbert Burns and he couldn't put him away. We know, Leon Edwards can put him away, and he's hit other guys with that head kick before. It's not a fluke. So if Kamaru doesn't address his defense, get his hands up, he could get put away again. So I think that it's not to say, Leon wins this fight, obviously, but home field advantage, momentum, coming off of a big win, and you showed yourself, I could take this guy down and I could knock him out. That's a huge confidence booster for a guy that was coming in thinking I could get absolutely taken down and shut out in this fight. And instead, he finds success in the wrestling and in the striking. I think that's a huge confidence boost for Leon.
The first fight, it's so far back in the distance. I don't even remember what happened. I just know that Kamaru won the fight, right? But the second fight, it's still fresh, man. And I feel like it's still going to be fresh in Usman's head, psychologically. I'm not a fighter. I never went into the cage and was knocked out unconscious by an opponent. So I have no idea what you have to go through to recover from that. Not just physically, but mentally, right? To get back into the gym. But it seems like he handled it really well, right? I believe he, like a week or two after that, he was on Joe Rogan laughing about, the situation and explaining like what happened after the knockout. So I don't think that Usman is going to be affected by the knockout at all. I feel like he is going to learn from it because he's a lifelong wrestler, man. These wrestlers, man, mentally, they're probably the strongest out there. Just wrestlers in general. It doesn't matter where you're from. It could be from the U.S. It could be from Russia, wherever. Just mentally, some of the strongest people out there. I feel like he's going to come back and win this fight. I think he's going to be smarter. I think Usman's going to be much, much smarter. I don't think he's going to have moments of like brain farts in the fight. I don't think he's going to have brain farts in the fight in this one. I feel like he felt himself a little too much because of the previous fights that happened. And we do have to point out, like Liam said, that he did get buzzed by Gilbert Burns. He did get who was that before that? Covington hit him a few times, right? It didn't look like it buzzed him, but it hit him clean, right? So it's not like he's unhittable. He can be hit, and Edwards showed that he can be knocked out clean. But I don't know. I put Usman as still one of the best pound for pound in the world, and I feel like he needed. I don't know if he needed it, right? But a loss can help you get to that second level. And I feel like we'll see the second level of Usman in this fight. We only seen the first level, right? We've seen what he can do on a long winning streak, and he's just winning, and he's just getting the belt and getting the defenses and all that. But now we put a speed bump in front of him. I feel like mentally he's strong enough. He has the right people around him. He's gonna go to London. I think he's gonna have a different game plan against Leon Edwards, and he'll get the win. I don't know if he'll finish the fight or anything like that, but I feel like it's not gonna play out like the second fight. I don't think it's gonna happen. I like Usman heading into this third one, this trilogy. Now, before we head out, let's talk about James Krause. Some new revelations. Liam, you're a guy that makes picks. You're a guy that likes to dabble and dibble and dabble in the gambling aspects, and I love talking to people about that as well. And new information has come out that James Krause, ESPN has released information about James Krause, more details of this case, that he was acting as an agent for an offshore book, which offshore books is not something that you want to be involved with, number one. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of things that is illegal going on there. But you are an agent. What is he, like an FBI agent? What Leo, could you enlighten us on what an agent of an offshore book would do? Do you know?
Yeah, well, I can definitely shed some light on this situation. Situations may vary. Do independent research, but just in the case of James Krause, I've read the articles. What it sounds like he was doing was he was operating a credit line for people, meaning that he would set them up with the bookmaker. So, I think it was ABC something, abc.ag, something like this. AG, meaning Antigua, I think, whatever it is. It's a, area, Costa Rica, a few places where you can bookmake anywhere in the world legally. But that doesn't mean everywhere else in the world accepts that you're legally bookmaking from Costa Rica. Does that make sense? So people go there because it's easy to set up. It's easy to get, licensure in that jurisdiction to set up a sports betting service. But then the United States says you can't play there. So somebody like James Krause, who's in the United States, then has to facilitate illegal transactions. And that's why this has ensnared him in legal trouble. He has to facilitate these transactions. There has to be money sent from them to you. It has to get to the United States. There has to be somebody who's operating a ledger for you. What bets you've placed. Are you winning? Are you losing? Do you owe me money? Do I owe you money? So that's sort of how the bookie relationship with the patron works. And there's some books that are post up, meaning in order to place the bet, I have to give you the money. So you have the money now. And if I win, you give me the money back with more money. And if I lose, you take the money. There's other bets where I place the bet on credit with you. Me and you establish, you got a $10,000 limit, before you have to pay me out, whatever. But, how much do you want to put down on this? That's what he was doing. Post up is legal bookmaking. Everywhere that you go to bet legally in the United States, you have to post up. You have to give them the money. So there's a wager where they know that the money is there. And there's not, somebody has to chase you down, and these kind of terrible situations that happen when people are trying to look for money that they don't get. And that's the other thing. When you have legal regulated bookmaking, you have somebody that you could appeal to. Hey, this person has wronged me. They owe me money. I placed a bet with them. I have the slip. They have my money. They haven't paid me out on this wager. You can involve the government. If you have a third party offshore bookmaking relationship, now I can't call a government agency and say, hey, you have to enforce some kind of standards. They're not hearing it. They said, you shouldn't have booked with them. We told you that's against the law. We told you we can't help you with an offshore, agency that we don't have any jurisdiction over. And so at the end of the day, in my humble opinion, this is getting Krause on technicalities, on things like wire fraud, mail fraud, things that are very easy to prove that he did wrong, in order to get more information about the broader problems here, of which there are many. And, the Minner fight is being investigated. The team is being eliminated and banned from competition and told to move elsewhere if they want to continue training. It's like the situation is very dire. And what I would assume they're doing is finding a way to force more people to talk about James's situation. And the way to do that is to threaten criminal charges against them. If they helped in any way facilitate these illegal transactions like wire fraud and mail fraud, that carries with it lengthy prison sentences and things like that, where people will then start sharing more information. Ultimately, they want to get James Krause, is my idea here. That's what it seems like to me, unless there's an even bigger fish to fry that we're unaware of. But until that shoe drops, I have to assume that the main target of this investigation is James Krause. And I think this is probably the smallest of all prosecutable offenses that he will be brought up for.
In this case, I don't believe James Krause is the head. I don't think he's the top guy, the top boy, so to say.
In these revelations, certainly not. He's just operating as a third-party agency. That's why I don't even think this is the biggest part of the story. This is like how they're going to prod him for more information about the things that we really want to know, like what happened in that fight with Darrick Minner, and did you know going in that Darrick had a 0% chance to win? Because if you had a 0% chance to win, that's a fixed fight. There's no other way to describe it. People placed bets as though he had, a 20 or a 15 or a 30% chance to win. That's what you're doing when you're betting. You're trying to establish what percentage of the time does this person win? Is it superior to the odds I'm being offered? And if you thought Darrick Minner had a chance to win and James and Darrick knew that he had a 0% chance to win, then you had a 0% chance to win. You bet into nothing. You just donated your money. You gave it away, and it's because you didn't have the information that they had. They had inside information. And that's why this illegal bookmaking stuff is wrong and probably speaks to some, steps that he was willing to take to skirt the law to make money, which, say whatever you will, it's a dirty, rotten business. It's cage fighting at the end of the day. But the things beyond that, we really care about. This is how I try and encourage people to make bets that are smart, to try and look at the odds, to try and make these percentages. But if somebody has a 0% chance to win and you're trying to make an honest assessment with half the information, you're doomed. You're being set up to fail, and that's not fair. And it would be illegal in any other market. And it would be clearly unethical in every other market. So these are the insider trading issues that we're dealing with as combat sports bettors. And I think it's better that the public becomes aware of it, because I've been yammering about James Krause for months, because it was clear and obvious that he at the very least had an appearance of impropriety. And I come from the world of politics and public opinion research, and you can't have the appearance of impropriety. That in of itself is too much. You're gone. So I think that, MMA is getting a little bit of a harsh wake-up call as ESPN is involved, as there's more magnifying glasses. They've tried to look away from all these situations, but at a certain point they can't. When Canada stops booking bets on the UFC for 30 million customers, you can't not talk about that. So I do think that it's important that it's been raised as an issue, and it's an issue I've been trying to raise myself because it's concerning. And I think it needs to be addressed in a forceful manner right now before it gets any worse.
Well, this is just the beginning, right? This is an FBI investigation, which means the more people that they interview, the more people that they threaten, the more information that's going to come out, the more people that they got to go to interview again, or make arrests, make interrogations. It's going to be a long, dragged out situation for the FBI and whatever agencies, what other agencies that are involved, and what countries are involved as well. It might not just be in the U.S. We don't know everything yet. But Chris, I wanted to throw this at you, man. You got Jeff Molina, who is a promising flyweight prospect in the UFC. Not much longer after Krause was suspended, he was suspended from competition. And then they got this, like screenshots from the 1% Club Discord where Molina is stating right here that the insight Krause has in this sport is insane. He's trained with a lot of the fighters, lives and breathes this sport as a coach/fighter, and at times has the scoop on injuries, non-announced matchups, how fighters look in camp, etc. In stocks, this is called insider trading and MMA betting. It's called James Krause. For the last 6 months, all my bills, including mortgage and car note, have been paid via Krause's picks. Do yourself a favor and join the VIP. Man,
I hate being right. I hate being right, gentlemen. I do. I hate it.
You think
Chris,
you regret saying that a little bit? Oh,
yeah. Like, this should tell you, please be careful of what you write in any chat room, any chat on your phone or anything, Chris. But this is really bad for Jeff Molina and James Krause, right? Like, what do you think of this excerpt?
Yeah, it's not looking good for Jeff. I mean, the thing is like, did people that took Krause's advice and worked with him in another way, are they also guilty of criminal offenses? I think that's what the question is. Did Jeff Molina actually do anything wrong, or did he just follow James Krause's advice? I think that's what the question is.
Hold on right there. I just want to cut you off. It says right there, in stocks it's called insider trading, in MMA betting it's called James Krause. Like that, that's clear as day. Like, he knows what's going on, right? Like, insider trading is illegal.
It's a crime. It's not a cheat code. It's a crime. But like, I mean, for Krause, it's like he still has a lot of influence in the technical side of the sport, coaching. For Jeff Molina, like, he's still like in his 20s. He's still like just getting his UFC career started. So that's a different kind of, like, man, it's a shame if he's taken out or like put behind bars. I'm not saying he's guilty of anything yet. I don't want to be a police here, but like, that's just crazy to think that there could be active UFC fighters that are promising that could be going to jail. That's at least like on the table.
No,
and
prison. Dana White said, not jail, prison.
There's a difference. There's a big difference. Yeah, I know. And it's like,
don't drop the soap. That's what Dana told James Krause.
Our advice to you, Jeff, don't drop the soap. But it's like how much more of this is going on, like, all throughout the UFC roster. Like, like, I forget who said it, but like, someone was like, 90% of the UFC roster is betting on fights and making money. I forget who said that, but someone said that recently. But I'm just like, oh man, what kind of things are going on in like Russia with people, like some more of these like offshore books, and like, I just I wonder how far it's gonna go. And this could end up being the story of 2023. As much bad stuff has already happened in 2023, like, it could get a lot worse. I hate to be the guy to say that, but like 2023 could just be getting started with all of this. And I hope it isn't, but yeah, not looking good. Hopefully it doesn't go that much farther, but gear up for an ugly 2023 is all I got to say.
The you don't even call it trajectory, right? It's like the decline of James Krause is just continuing, right? And who is involved? You know, this is the most interesting story in the history of the sport, to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it involves so many people, and it's been going on. It's not even just the James Krause thing. From what I've heard behind the scenes, it's been going on the whole time. You just don't know who, because no one's going to admit to it. And James Krause was the one that basically, the Ariel Helwani interview is like the most classic, I'm guilty of all these things. I'm going to tell you what I'm guilty of. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing illegally. And you are not going to do nothing about it. Well, yeah. Yes, people are always listening. People are always watching. And especially like a lot of people that gamble, they really hate James Krause. Even before all of this stuff happened, right, with Derek Minner, and I'm pretty sure Liam, you as well. You saw this, the writing on the wall. You probably the Ariel Helwani interview where he was talking about account takeovers, which is illegal as well. Like, he admitted to it.
And anybody who knows the first thing about gambling knows how illegal that is. It's like legal, regulated gambling. The first things they ask you are like proof of identification. Where do you live? Like, can you agree to geolocation services? Like, it's a very upfront process. You got to be who you are, and you got to be where you say you are. Like, and they check. So if you're not doing that and you're openly, publicizing that, what are you doing behind the scenes? What are you doing when we're not watching? If you'll tell us to our face, I'm doing this illegal act, I'm doing these facilitations of crimes, and then we already know about one shady thing, which is being, a agent for the offshore bookmaker. I'm not going to personally fault him too much for that. It's the world of gambling. I kind of get it, but I also am like, I know that the reason I dislike James Krause has nothing to do with him working as an agent for an offshore bookmaker. That's the least of my concerns. My concern is that he's got weird coaching behavior in fights that he admits, again, on Ariel's show, that I'm wagering on. So I wager on the fight, then change my behavior as a coach or spectator as a result. So I'm not coaching everybody equally. I'm coaching some guys to go get the finish because I have the ITD prop. It's like, this guy was going way over the line, crossing. We talk about, the sport for a long time walked that fine line between, like, the fighters would talk about sometimes. I bet my whole fight purse on myself, which is a completely ridiculous investment strategy. But people would tell you straight up, like, I'm betting 25,000 on this fight that they're involved in. That used to be just commonplace. Justin James said it before his fight. He said, I'm betting my entire fight purse, the value of my purse, on myself to win. And he lost the fight, by the way. So this isn't a new thing, but then it's a whole nother thing to say, I'm betting on the people that I coach. I'm betting on the fights for people. And then he knows that Derek Minner's injured, guys. We know that. He knew that going in. He said it in his Discord, by the way. So he knew, and he probably bet accordingly, even though he's in the corner. That's probably why he's going to jail. And nobody says that, but it's like, guys, that's the most obvious thing in the world. And he's probably done it before. And when he said that he bet $3 million on David Onama, that's either a lie or it was facilitated by having all those multiple accounts. Because anybody who knows the first thing about gambling knows they open up the limits at the end of the week. He did a podcast on like a Monday or Tuesday, said, yeah, I got down $3 million on Onama. At the time, limits at most sports books are 5 dimes, maybe 10 dimes. And again, he's reporting to be a very sharp player. If you guys are sharp players or you know any sharp players, they'll tell you, you start betting into one of these shops that isn't very sophisticated and you're beating them, they will not take a big bet from you. You want to bet 10 grand at a time, they'll say no. 10 grand. And he's saying he got down $3 million. And then the other guy wins against a minus 300 favorite. And James is supposedly out all the money. It's like, I bet he did fine. I bet the people who listened to his advice did poorly. I bet he did just fine on that transaction, and we'll wait and see, right? Sue me if you want, James. You got bigger fish to fry, but I just think, I'm not afraid to say what's on my mind. I think that there's a lot more to come out about this situation. I've been skeptical for a long time, and that's why this for me is just like pebbles on the ground of a very dirty situation that he's gotten himself involved in, and these will be the little rocks stuck in his shoe that get him in enough pain to talk about what's going on, whatever that is, but it's going to go deeper.
In that interview, he mentioned that, he's like, man, I don't make money from coaching. I make my money from gambling, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. We know that the pay is not so high, and coaches going to get a certain percentage of their winnings. But if you look at the article, it mentions he owns 14 properties. He owns 14 properties. He drives a Porsche. Like, if you're not making money off coaching, you must have been making tremendous amount of money if you're owning 14 properties, right? That
Discord is how he was making the money. He gets you to pay for him to gamble with your money. And on top of it all, he's then working for the bookmaker. So he's pretending to work for you. He's working for the bookmaker. He's working for the UFC. He's working for this guy. He's doing the show. All of that can't be kosher. That's 9 conflicts of interest. I can't be the guy who books the bet, the guy who tells you what to bet on, and the guy who bets myself. I can't be, because I'm lying then. Somebody has to lose, guys. I hate to tell you, this is the truth of gambling. Someone loses. Every time. And sometimes it's the guy who's really good at gambling. Sometimes he loses, but it's like we all take a risk. And so at the end of the day, somebody gets paid out with somebody else's money. That's true, right? We all can't win. We all want to win. We all try and play the game fairly. If you lose the game fairly or win the game fairly, no one's got a problem. But when you cheat to win, when you have information that the rest of the field doesn't have, and you tell people, I'll make it available to you, and then you do and you don't. He also, I can share from personal experience because I knew about this one at the time. He said, Merab Dvalishvili has an injury. I would cash out your bets on Merab. And Merab 30-27's Jose Aldo. Was that real information or fake information? Did the bookmaker tell him to say that, or did he think to say that? I don't know. You tell me.
You could go through a fine.
Did Merab look hurt to you, by the way, in that fight? I didn't think so.
Well, you could go through a fine-tooth comb and just go through all the podcasts and all the advice that he gave out to people and dissect it. And that's what probably the FBI is doing, to see like the bets that he made, the advice that he was giving out on the podcast, and that's why all the accounts were
something tells me they're not going to add up.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's
someone's already writing a movie about this. Like, I was just trying to think, like, who's going to play James Krause in like the next
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal, Ashton Kutcher, I think would be a good James Krause. Like, that's going to be an awesome movie someday. It's going to be good. Or a Netflix documentary. It's perfect.
Oh, it's going to definitely be something on Netflix. Like, Netflix is going to take advantage of that situation. But it's not over. It's far from over. And we're going to be talking about this for the rest of the year, I think, and maybe even into the next year. Who knows? Unless people start taking plea deals, and then we'll start seeing things close off real quick, investigations. But We'll be watching closely. Man, there you go. Liam, tell everybody where they can find you, what work you've been doing, and yeah, man, like what you're looking forward to this year.
Absolutely. Well, number one, it was a pleasure to be on. It was a pleasure to speak with both of you guys. I think this is the first time ever doing a show with the two of you gentlemen, and I had an absolute blast. I love talking about these fights. I like talking about the betting side of things, but I also talk about the fights from an analytical standpoint. I do a full card preview every week for Roto Grinders, and then I contribute to the Lab VIP. So I do a lot of in-depth research. I have fighter notes, over 300 fighter profiles, mostly from fighters in the UFC, but even contender series fighters and things like that. I try and build out pretty deep archives of notes, sometimes up to 10, 20 pages for title challengers and really important contenders like that. So that's what I bring to the table. You can find me everywhere at Liam Picks Fights, and I truly appreciated the opportunity. It was a blast speaking about fights with you guys.
For sure. Chris, what about you, man? What you working on?
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me at just that handle you see on your screen this way, whatever you see it, on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, I'm all about the Asian MMA. So India, China, Indonesia, all these markets that are like springing up from the grassroots and, you know, producing these big stars like Zhang Wei Li, like that's what I'm all about. And, you know, I got some projects that I'll be able to announce really soon about Asian MMA. That's going to be really, really fun. Right now, one of my big projects is bringing, you know, Chinese MMA out of the Chinese internet into the mainstream, into the English speaking world. So I've been like uploading Chinese fights from a lot of big names. You know, Zhang Mingyang is one guy that I've been putting on even today. His fight's on my YouTube channel, so people can see him. That's kind of been locked away. So yeah, whatever I can do to help Asian fighters get into the mainstream, build their own brand, all of that. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about some things really soon about how I'm facilitating that and going to give them a platform. But yeah, follow me. I got news, got reactions on news, all that good stuff. So
there you go. Make sure you guys go into the description down below and download the AllStar app. We are going to be adding the picks option very, very soon, so everybody can get involved. News, interviews, notes, statistics, schedules, all of that on the app for every promotion: UFC, Bellator, PFL, One Championship. Follow me, JHK MMA on Twitter, and we will be back on Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the pick show with the Bane and the fight analysts for next week's UFC 283 pay-per-view in Brazil. Thank you, Liam. Thank you, Chris, for joining me. Thank you, everybody that has joined. And make sure to subscribe, and we'll be back. See you guys. Peace out.